Today on CityCast Chicago, as the city continues to pursue police alternatives for reducing gun violence, one tactic that's gaining more and more momentum is partnering with community members who are already building relationships to intervene in conflict, sometimes before it ever happens. This is a form of peacekeeping. But what is it like to actually be a peacekeeper out in these streets every single day? It's Monday, March 31st. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago is talking about. Damian Morris is the Chief Program Officer of Violence Prevention at Breakthrough and a leader for violence reduction in Chicago. Damian, welcome to CityCast Chicago, my friend.
Welcome, my brother. Welcome, Kobe.
When I was in high school, the first time I ever heard of peacekeeping, so this is back in I think I was in high school, 2006, 2007, our teacher was telling us about the UN Peacekeepers, the organization that came out in the 40s where they send civilian and military personnel into former war zones and places to try to broker peace. However, over the last decade plus, I have heard the term peacekeepers being used more and more across the city of Chicago, largely with organizations trying to reduce violence in communities. But for people listening, what exactly is a peacekeeper?
Yes. So a peacekeeper is actually a male or female who's from the community, and they all have a common denominator, right, to reduce the violence in their community. So we have a hyperlocal approach. Once again, we hire men and women from that community who have the closest buy-in to want to see their community do better, right? And they engage with the men and women who are high risk, meaning that the activities that they participate in or are involved in will lead them to be either a perpetrator of gun violence or a victim of gun violence. Breakthrough purpose is to really empower the community to thrive, right? So we have this holistic approach.
This isn't just about getting, social workers or people who, know about what's going on in Garfield Park theoretically. These are people who have working relationships on the ground, who live in the community, who may have been affiliated in the community, people who themselves may have participated in criminal activity in their youth or while they were coming up in the neighborhood. What led you to this work? How did you get involved with Breakthrough and become a peacekeeper yourself?
I was incarcerated at the age of 17. And so during my incarceration, within that first year of my incarceration, I received my GED. After that, other guys that I was incarcerated with, they wanted to get their GED as well. And so what I end up doing, I end up putting aside our differences, and we start tutoring each other and also getting each other prepared so that they could take the GED test and then also pass the GED test. So that really was the start of my social service idea, right? Or calling, And so once I got out, through the help of my family, kind of putting together resources, I came across Breakthrough, and I was referred to Breakthrough through their employment program. And so that was in 2008. And so I've been here 17 years now.
Come on, man. Beautiful work. I want to go back to the story you were telling, because I think about I grew up in Auburn Gresham, and it feels like in some cases you are kind of birthed into the politics of your neighborhood, the rivalries of your neighborhood, regardless of what path you choose to go down or what path you find yourself going down. And I wonder, because you talk about putting your differences aside, was that moment where you all were tutoring each other, was that the first time in your life where you had experienced sort of, hey, we got shared goals. We may be on the opposite sides of things or from rival groups, but we got shared goals. We can work together, through just talking and helping each other. There's some conflict resolution here. Was that your first time ever kind of doing that with somebody who you may have been at odds with?
Yes, and that was so funny because initially, even if you wasn't affiliated, just because you reside in a certain neighborhood, the assumption was already there, right? And so we formed a bond during this tutoring session, right? And it actually led to us to reduce the number of incidents, fighting incidents that we had on that gallery, right? I started filing grievances for the collective. So it wasn't just about me, it was about how collectively we was being mistreated and what we were required to have, right, have access to and things of that nature. And so I became that voice because I was able to write and read, right? And so I was able to be that spokesperson, but I also had the support of the collective as well. And so that really opened up my eyes to this work, and I felt like, okay, I could really do this, you know.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the gaps between us isn't as large as we think. Maybe bridging this, working together, finding sort of, like you said, that shared identity, that shared purpose in one another can bring us together in a way that, you know, maybe none of us had ever thought about. I know that the work you do from day to day can change. Just through watching the documentary, I saw what it meant for you to comfort family members after a tragic shooting. I saw what it meant for you to come together as people memorialized. I watched you talk with your staff members who may have felt uncomfortable at a different point. But can you kind of give us a sense of what does being a peacekeeper look like day to day?
Yes, so the average day of a peacekeeper is really unpredictable, but we try our best to have some sort of plan going into that day. So the average day is we discuss priority areas of conflict. We identify who's the best point person for those specific areas. And so we actually go to those sites, have we call meetings on an as needed basis. If we have a shooting incident, we rally and we support our victim advocates to make sure that we get them connected to the victims or the surviving victim's family, right, and provide services for them. We walk with them through that process. We also do house visits as well. And so our peacekeepers accompany our victim advocates to those homes. We also canvas as a team and then also as each shift too. So we canvas at least 3 times a week, and then we also canvas as a collective at least once a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we hit certain parts of East Garfield Park with brochures, flyers, public education, explaining what it is that the organization does from a violence prevention lens, and also holistically as an entire organization. And we do pop-ups in areas. So we plan pop-ups and kind of like cookout events that we host for about 2 hours in a specific area that we have seen an uptick in violence, right? And so we use that to comfort the community and let them know that, hey, you have support, right? Just because a shooting incident took place or a homicide took place, you do have a team that's out, that's canvassing, that want to get to know you, that want to also let you know that they're here for you as well. And you do not have to, lock yourself inside your homes and, and just worry about yourselves, right? So we do that. Any events that we may have, or any other organizations that may need support, or if we have balloon releases, vigils, right, death anniversaries, we want to make sure that we communicate with each other. We want to support. We also want to provide another extra sense of security as well for those who are mourning. But we also want to support them as well with the purchasing of balloons, flowers, whatever the case may be. So that's an average day of a peacekeeper.
Man, I appreciate how thorough you were in going through that work. Again, following along through the camera in the Firsthand Peacekeepers documentary. Early on in your episode, you had to respond to the shooting of Jason Daniels, a young man who I believe was the son of a colleague of yours who passed away in September of last year. I mean, dude, even watching it, and I know watching you have to kind of immediately jump into action to comfort, to provide resources. To at one point you sitting there listening like I'm just thinking about like growing up and just thinking about, all right, what's them shots? Is them gunshots? Them gunshots? How quickly you had to spring into action to canvas to make sure you could find anybody who might have been hurt, to provide updates to the family. How do you stay emotionally resolved and calm and locked in when this is literally fucking life or death every single day?
I prepare myself because, for one, I have to get myself mentally prepared that I may be arriving to a chaotic scene, right? And so I have to remain calm because someone that I may know may lean upon me for guidance, right? And so for advice, for direction. And so by me knowing that, like it's kind of like it's became second nature for me, And so when that incident took place right there, I knew instantly, like I had to connect with him instantly, because that's for that split second or every second that went past, right? He's going to have that positive voice or that negative voice, pulling at him. The negative side is saying, hey man, how you going to respond, right? Something just happened. How are you going to respond? The positive is, hey, hold on, take a breather. Let's plan this out, right? Let's really get yourself settled, right? And that's why, I have to remain calm, because I understand that he's in a headspace where a lot of things are going on. His phone going off, people calling, people texting, right? People are trying to support him, whether it's in a negative or a positive manner, right? He got some type of support. And so I have to come in and try to, override that as best as I could. And so I have to remain calm.
You know me, I've always got a book or two or three I'm either reading or suggesting. And we will always pull for the local independent Chicago bookstores. But hey, I get it. With busy schedules, shopping online can be convenient. And with bookshop.org, you don't have to choose. Bookshop.org lets you choose an independent bookstore or an organization to order from, and your purchase directly supports them. I'm sitting right here looking at their map right now, and they got some of my favorite spots like Burst Into Books in Roseland, Bookies in Beverly, Pilsen Community Books, Women and Children First in Andersonville, and so many more. So whether you're looking for something to help you understand the world, or you're just looking for a fun spring break read, bookshop.org can help you find the perfect book and support these community institutions at the same time. Plus, if you use code CityCast, you'll get 15% off your next order at bookshop.org. I'm about to use it right now. How do you stay tapped into what's going on in Garfield Park? Who could be more vulnerable to end up being a victim of gun violence versus somebody else?
The strategy is that once again we build relationship. Back in 2017, I was a case manager and an outreach worker. So I just didn't want to stay in the office and welcome the high-risk individual when they come into my office. I wanted to canvas the community and build those relationships myself. And right now to this day, I still have those relationships now that I'm a chief program officer. So you can just think about that's at least 8 years of relationship building and investment that I have put into that engagement with those individuals. Our primary or our target population first is those men and women who have been justice involved, right? And they're now on the right track, right? They have that mentality that they want to do something different with their lives, right? And be a role model. And so they are the men and women who are outreach workers. They are victim advocates. They are case managers, right? They are peacekeeper coordinators, right? They are community relations personnel as well, right? So they hold positions that we think that are instrumental in reducing the violence in the community. So those are the people that we're hiring in those positions. And then when they do go out into the community, those individuals can relate, those high risk individuals can relate to them because they are just as impacted themselves. And so now they could see what potential that they may have if they choose to get on the right track.
When I think about some of the stories of gun violence in particular in this city, it feels like so much of it is retaliatory. Like you're not at the beginning of something, you're in the middle of something that's ongoing. How do you intervene? Because I know for so many that moment feels like weakness if they don't retaliate, if they don't show up for their cousin or their brother or their family member.
We try a couple of approaches. We try to definitely isolate them, so get them away from, from those negative influences, right? So change their location. We try to have an alternative conversation. We try to get them to focus on the consequences, right? We also try to state the obvious, right? Like, hey, this happened, right? Now, what do you think about if a retaliation happens? Who do you think that they're going to think about who have the best motive, you know what I'm saying, to retaliate, right? And then once again, hey, let's make sure that we lay this loved one to rest. Let's use this time right now to make sure that everything is taken care of, funeral arrangements, things of that nature, right? So we call that buying time. And then we also use constructive shadowing. So we stay with that person. We may not be able to be in the house with them, but I'm calling, I'm texting, my outreach workers are checking in on them as well, right? Anybody that we know that have that mindset that they want to keep them calm and keep them from retaliating, right? We want to surround them with those people, right?
Over the last 4 years, the number of shootings in Chicago has reduced by 42%. However, when I think about the big challenges this work has faced, the threats of cutting critical federal funding, what are the biggest challenges you see to doing this work in Garfield Park right now?
The population have got younger. So now we're starting to see between the ages of 12 to 17 years of age becoming victims of gun violence or perpetrators of gun violence, right? Most of our grants that we've been receiving funding for allows us to provide services for 18 plus, you know. And so now we just have to think about violence are trends too, right? So we have to think about now, hey, we need to lower our age range because this is what we're starting to see. Hence the news of the 13-year-old, right? The 16-year-old, becoming victims of violence, right? So we need to lower that age range. So that's one challenge. Another challenge is that I would love to give a shout out to private donors, right? Because violence prevention was funded from private donors. I really tip my hat to them because they believed in us, believed in the potential that we may have, right? And they funded that. We need consistent funding, and then we also need a comparable salary as well to CPD, to firefighters, right, and EMTs, right, because we're actually literally putting our life on the line to save others. We do not have no form of protection other than our credibility, right? And so I just think that we should be compensated, not the same salary. I understand that, but at least come close to it because we need job security. We need for it to be funded permanently, written into a bill so that it can be funded permanently so that we can have some assurance.
What have you learned not only about your community through this work of peacekeeping, but what have you learned about Chicago as a whole?
Even the high risk individuals, they have potential, they have talent, right? It's just that we have to have enough people to have the courage to engage with them and be passionate about wanting to engage and invest in them. And hopefully, you can, transform their life, right? And I remember when I was a case manager and I had a participant, he was going to college. And so his family fell on hard times. They wanted him to come back and do what he do best, which is get money on the streets. So he left college, went back on the streets to provide. He ended up getting shot. And The rest is history, right? He never went back to college, you know. But guess what? I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't engaged with him. You know, if I hadn't had the courage to walk up to him on the block, right? It was about 10 of them, introduce myself and kind of like pick his brain, right? You know what I'm saying? So they have potential. They have aspirations. We just have
They
to be
have deep
bold.
stories, man.
Yeah,
They
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 do.
got hopes and dreams, like you said, talent, so much, and for so many, we searching for identity. We searching for purpose, a sense of belonging and home. And that ain't every single person, but the vast majority of young people I come in contact with who are either still on the block hustling, who have at some point, like even just through like storytelling. I used to work in Cook County Jail, just doing storytelling workshops, and you listen to the stories that people are telling you, and it, I don't know, it at least for me, it was a reminder to be vigilant against the narrative that just makes all of them one person, that groups them together, says that it's hopeless, that you need to like sort of discard them and throw them away. It's a reminder that there's a human being behind every single one of these stories, every single one of these pathways. And are we willing to do the work, like you said, to really engage people where they are, really learn who people are? Because I think oftentimes you can see in social work, people are engaging because they have an agenda to change you versus trying to first engage to get to know you.
Yes.
And it sounds like the work that so many of the peacekeepers around Chicago are doing is they're not engaging so that they can demonize you or so that they can simply tell you that everything you are doing is wrong. They really doing it to open their arms and bring you into community.
Yes. That's it. That's it.
Mm-hmm. What do you hope those who watch and listen to your story take from it? Not only Chicago residents, but lawmakers.
Please, I say, please, reach out to us. If you're in the community, you're a little bit skeptical about being, being out there, putting yourself out there. Reach out to a community-based organization, partner with them, get involved with them, and they can show you how to engage with the men and women in your community as well. To lawmakers, we need permanent funding. Please allocate a portion of whatever the funding is towards community violence intervention. It works. It's proven. We have the numbers to show that it's working, right. And then we also been collaborating too. All our organizations, we're collaborating with each other. So whether you're in East Garfield Park, West Garfield Park, Humboldt Park, Austin, North Lawndale, South Lawndale, on the south side of Chicago, up north, over east, right? We're all collaborating with each other because we just understand our youth, right? Like I said, violence is a trend. Our youth are either forming alliances or they're forming oppositions, right? And that can transfer from one community to the next community. And so we've been collaborating with each other so that we can stay aware of what's trending.
I mean, we want to see more and more investment in peacekeeper programs, not only in high risk neighborhoods, but across the city of Chicago, sort of reimagining what public safety strategy looks like. But we know in this city, there are people who, when they think public safety, they think police, investing in police, not investing in alternative strategies. How, through the work you've done, have you open people's minds up to broader investments in this kind of work, and how do you position this for the people who are skeptical?
Yes, I would say definitely it takes all of us. So it's not just a one proven thing, right? You need a professional understanding with CPD, right? Because there's just certain things that we can't do that CPD may be able to do, and we understand that part, and vice versa. CPD understand that they cannot go into spaces that violence prevention organizations can. And so we have that understanding. Just really, if you want to take a deep dive, reach out to us and get to know us. Like I said, we're working on a training for CPD as well as community violence intervention workers as well, so that we can both understand how each other operate, right? So that's, stay tuned for that.
How can people follow the work you're doing as well as contribute, get involved?
Our website is www.breakthrough.org. On there, you'll see our entire organization, our departments, the services that we provide, the contacts for whatever services that you're interested in. If you want to volunteer, we have that option there as well. Yes, get involved at www.breakthrough.org.
Damian Morris is the Chief Program Officer of Violence Prevention at Breakthrough. You can watch this episode of Firsthand Peacekeepers from WTTW at the link in our show notes. Damian, I appreciate you making time today, G.
No problem at all, Kobe. I'm honored.
One more thing, some good news. A part of me is still riding high on that Bulls half-court buzzer beater night against the Lakers last week and that Sox opening day A1 win. Yes, I know the Cubs won on that day too. I'm gonna keep it all the way real with y'all. When I was recording this, I haven't actually seen the weekend scores just yet, but let's pretend we swept all of them. Some CityCast related good news. We have been named Best Podcast finalists for the Chicago Headline Club's Peter Lisagor Awards. This is pretty cool. We have swept the Best Podcast at the Chicago Readers Best of Chicago for the last 4 years, but this is our first time being nominated as a finalist. So again, shout out to the Chicago Headline Club. As always, we appreciate you for listening and reading. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. Hopefully you'll join us. Peace.